going to get to work on the clock spring of the truck here shortly, I hope. However, my wife called me. She was at Walmart about 20 miles away or so, said her car wouldn't stay running. Darn thing would start, run for a second or two, and then shut off. I was thinking fuel pump, doesn't act like a fuel pump. I showed up and it must have sensed I was coming and immediately started. She was talking to some online Mitsubishi mechanic type thing, and they were naming off things. The first thing they mentioned was corrosion on the battery cables. They said if there's any corrosion on the cables, that could cause it, which I'm thinking that must be common, or it wouldn't be the first thing they mention. I don't know. So I removed the cables and cleaned them all up, posts on the battery. The battery was almost just sitting in there. It started at the store, she drove it home, ran fine, check engine light was on, but she had been unplugging some things out here under the hood while she was waiting for me, unplugging them, plugging them back in. I guess it was things that they were telling her to do. When she finally messed with the battery cables, that's when I showed up. She tried to start it, it started, ran fine. Drove it home, unloaded things out of the car, I drove it down here, I shut it off, tried to start it again, wouldn't run. So I'm doing the battery cables since that seems to be what fixed it at the store. Cleaning those up and I'll see what happens. After I get that done, clock spring. I don't think the clock spring is going to be too difficult to do. Hardest part of the whole thing I think is getting the steering wheel off, which shouldn't be too difficult. It's Friday night, almost 5 o'clock. Might enjoy a few adult beverages while I'm down here. Might do a little Instagramming also. Well, I took the battery cables off, cleaned them all up, which didn't make sense to me, but I'm not used to these foreign cars, so I did that. Didn't make any difference. I ended up going to the parts store, just kind of taking a stab in the dark here. I got one of these, which is the throttle positioning sensor, which you can't really see in there. But I have a gut feeling that is the culprit, and so I'm going to swap it out. Not real hard to get to, thankfully, on this car. It, yeah, I don't know if you can see it. It's down underneath this air tube here. And it's right back in there if you can see it. I'm gonna get this off, and then it's pretty easy to get to. Not gonna take long to get this done at all. So here is the old throttle positioning sensor. Just slips into a hole and bolt goes in there and a wire connector. Pretty simple. So I'm gonna stick the new one in there and see if the car will start. Well, I thought I had the camera recording when I started it, but it wasn't. But it did start. That was the problem. Pretty happy about that. So now I just need to button this all back up and get this car out of here. Okay, I need to get started on this video of the clock spring. I have been on Instagram, Facebook, many people messaging me, and so the first thing I'm going to do, I don't know how well you can see in here at the moment, but I'm going to pull this bottom panel off. I already took the fuse door out. Pull this panel off. There are two screws. There's one under here and one over there. They have a Torx head on them, or you can also use a 7mm nut driver or a socket, whatever you have. I'm going to pull that off just for easier access up underneath there. And then after that, there are 4 10mm nuts on the back of your steering wheel. I'm going to take those out, and then we'll pull the steering wheel out of this thing. Also, one thing you probably want to do before you do this is take the battery cables off of your battery, and also up under here is a connection. I believe it's this one. Might be that one. I'm gonna unhook them both. One of those is for your airbag, And the last thing you want is that airbag going off when you're trying to remove it. So you want to unhook those under the dash. So I got that bottom panel off and these nuts removed from the back side of the steering wheel. And now I believe the airbag should just come right out. And then there's a connection on the back side of it. And you just take that apart. And then there you have it right there. Set that aside over here with the rest of this stuff. So then you got your steering wheel here. I need to get a light in here. Need to take this out and then we'll pull the steering wheel on out of here. So I got a light set up. Hopefully this helps a little bit. Need to loosen this, which is a 15 millimeter. Fits on there. Well, I thought it did anyway. And take that loose. So I have this out. We're going to put it back in just a little bit, because we're going to use a puller to pull the steering wheel on out of here. So I think I've got this set up to where we can get the wheel off, get the steering wheel off. And there she comes. So we've got that. Now take this center nut or bolt out of here. Nut, I get. Center bolt out of there, and this should come right off. Looks like we need to take this apart. I'm not sure how it comes apart. Looks like it has some kind of a little tab connector here. So we'll take this apart right here. Those two wires go through there. And you've got your steering wheel off. So now you can see we've got the clock spring here, which is held in with some Torx screws. So I'm gonna have to go get a Torx bit or driver or something and remove those. So I have a T20 Torx bit and just remove these. There's just 3 of them in here. Whoops. Put those up here. With those removed, this should pull right out of here. One more set of wires on the back side of this. I'm not exactly sure how those come off here. The new clock spring has those wires on the back of it as well, so I don't need to pull that connection apart. But it looks like I need to pull some wires up from down below. Okay, so there's that one little gray wire right down in there, and it goes over to your ignition switch. I'm not sure how well you can see all of that. So I'm going to pull this part off, and hopefully I can get a little better access to it. Sorry for the noise down here. I've got the heater going. Kind of cold out. You'll also have to remove, if you have tilt steering, you'll have to remove this, which it unscrews, which mine seems to be a little tight, so I'm going to use a little persuasion. So I finally got that out of there. I kind of marred it up a little bit here. Had to clamp onto it with some vice grips. After 23 years, I guess that was stuck in there pretty good. Gonna sand that down and give it a quick shot of black paint. However, now this should, I think, pull out of here. There might be one more screw back in here. Yep, there is. One little screw right up in there. So after pulling that last screw out, this will come right on out of there. So you can see that connection right there on the, well, maybe you can't, that connection there on the ignition. Here's where that connection is, and should be able to just pop that out of there, I believe, like so. The wiring harnesses for this, I don't know how well you can see. Sometimes that light makes it worse, but the wiring harnesses pass through a couple of clips. There's one right there at the end of my finger. There's another one down here. Just need to take those clips apart, pull the wires out, and then we can put the new clock spring in. So we've got the old clock spring out of here. I'm going to take this apart here in just a little bit and see what's broke where. But let's get the new one back in here, shall we? So you're going to have to pull your ignition cylinder out of there, which there's a little hole in the bottom of it. You can put a, I just use a little screwdriver like this. You can push up in it. You got to turn your key a little bit, and then your ignition cylinder, that part will pull right out of there, and then that part will fit in there. There's a slot back in there. Hopefully it'll make sense to you once you get it apart. It's not hard to do. So I have the wiring harness in its little tab back here. I haven't put it in this one yet. I'm gonna go ahead and mount this up onto here. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. This has top labeled right on it, so I'm going to go ahead and lift this up onto here like that, and then these two, one connects to your airbag, one connects to your steering wheel. These need to go up in this little bracket doohickey down here, something like that. Doesn't seem to want to latch very good. So we've got this on here. I need to take those torque screws and mount this back on. So I've got this back on here, and now just to tighten up these torque screws. And I guess now would be the time to pull this off, which is held in with 3 little tiny screws. I don't know if the little screwdriver I have in here will work or not. Probably not. They're pretty darn small. That might. You want to leave this in place so your clock spring doesn't get wound too far one way or the other before you put your steering wheel on. So you pull that off, and now it's time to put the steering wheel back on. These need to feed right through that hole. Alright, so we got them through the hole. Put this back on where it belongs. So this black one here fits up into the steering wheel like that. The yellow one will fit the airbag like that, and then we just put this back into there. Like so. Then our 4 nuts will go on the back side of the steering wheel, and we'll be done. Okay, with one exception. You may want to put this back in. I got the battery hooked back up, and I tell you what, I am going to do this in the morning because right now, I don't know if you can see the clock or not, but it's 12:30 in the morning. I'm about done for today. But I'm gonna take this apart and see where it is broke. However, one thing that I haven't heard in this truck for a very, very long time, 15, 16 years, something like that, is the horn. So I think we have it all fixed up. Cruise control should work. Everything should work. I'll give it a thorough test tomorrow. I also need to put a little bit of paint on this. I'm gonna sand this down and put some paint on it and then screw it back in, since I marred it up a little bit when I took it out of there. So in the morning, I'm gonna take this apart, see where it's broke, and see why nothing has worked for the last 15, 16 years. But it'll seem like about 1 second to you guys. Well, as you just saw, I finished up last night rather late. It's the next day. Little chilly in the shop, 50 degrees. Pretty much a rotten day today. Right now it is 46 degrees. Wind just picked up a little bit. It's raining lightly. It's just cold, wet, and rather crappy out. My wife just took off in her car to take my daughter to a birthday party. Seems to be running just fine, so I believe we got that fixed okay. I haven't started the truck and I'm not gonna take it out and drive it today because it's all nice and cleaned up. So not gonna take it out and test the cruise control or anything like that, but everything I think should work. So right now I'm gonna take this old clock spring apart and see if I can find where it is broken or what happened to it. It really wasn't very old when it stopped working. Cruise control didn't work, horn didn't work. I assume the airbag wouldn't work because the little airbag light was, it's been blinking for all these years. So I'm gonna start taking this clock spring apart. It looks like there is a little tab. You can see that right in there. I guess. Never taken one of these apart before. So we got that off, and basically inside these clock springs, it's like a ribbon cable. It's all wound up in there, which allows your steering wheel to turn. And how does that come out? That's held in down there. Let's see if I can pop this ring off the back side of this thing. Like so. We'll pull this out of here. And that's why it didn't work. It just totally broke right there. Actually broke in a couple places. So there is that, which runs back to these wires back here. And evidently that broke from this, and also broke from this, and this is all stuck together. Probably been that way for many years. So evidently, somehow it just broke. It doesn't look like it tore. I don't know, but that's why it didn't work. Coming up next time, I'm going to have a little mail time. I know of at least 2 things that are waiting for me at my P.O. box, and I think there's 1 or 2 more coming. People have told me that they're sending some things in. I believe a couple of things coming are more license plates. Possibly some fan mail. And if you have a license plate or anything else that you would like to send the Fox Shop, the address is in the description below. You can also get one of these snazzy t-shirts, hoodies. There's 3 different styles. That link's in the description below as well. My daughter was down here while I was working last night, put a few more characters on the board. We have a shadow fox, a Hawaii fox, Pecky the peacock, which the peacock was there, but she named it Buddy. I'm not sure, is Buddy the fox shop mascot? I can't remember what she named her frog, Frogasus or something like that. And Mr. Fox, Mr. YouTube Fox. So with that being done, I can mark clock spring off the list. So with all that, if you have a truck and your airbag light is flashing, horn doesn't work, cruise control doesn't work, this is probably the culprit. Not real difficult to do, takes a little bit of time, but not real hard. Don't wait 17 years like I did. So give this video a thumbs up, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.